Thank you. What a great crowd. Thank you for coming. This is exciting. Just a little bit of housekeeping. In the event of emergency, the residents in the room know what to do and where to go. For all the guests and visitors, try to keep up with the residents. That way. I feel like an air hostess. We're very privileged today that we have a guest, a very important guest in our area, and it's my pleasure to welcome the Mayor of the Ballina Shire, Councillor Sharon Cadwallader. Hey. Sharon, come on up, Sharon. Sharon is a passionate advocate for our community and is deeply committed to building a strong, inclusive and forward-looking Ballina Shire. Her leadership reflects a genuine care for the well-being of us residents and a clear vision for the future of the region. We're very fortunate to have her with us today, and we appreciate her taking the time, or you taking the time from your busy schedule to join us and share your insights with us. So please join me in giving and welcoming Mayor of Ballina Shire, Councillor Sharon Cadwallader.
Everyone, I feel like I'm really amongst friends. That was a lovely welcome, which I really appreciate. And for inviting me and Consort Bruce over here to this gathering this morning, the authors of beautiful Pallant in, of course, what else but beautiful Ballina Shire. So thank you. This is the way that I absolutely get to know who you are, who are the people that I serve in our community, and find out more about you. And what better way than an authors event like this, where you're capturing the stories and everything else. So bringing writers together in a space like this, relaxed, friendly and community-minded, it feels exactly right. Stories are, after all, how we connect, how we remember, and how we make sense of the world around us. I would like to begin with acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet, the Nayabal people from the Bundjalung Nation, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. This has always been a place of storytelling, knowledge, sharing and community. And it's wonderful that we can continue that tradition here this morning. I started thinking about the storytelling and the place where I grew up at Stewart's Point. And one of the things came to mind when I thought about recognising the traditional custodians was I grew up with Joey Donovan. Now some of you may have remembered Joey Donovan. He was an amateur flyweight boxing champion that went to the Olympic Games in 1968. I know it's a long time ago. His little brother used to chase me from school, and he could run real fast. He'd chase me to try and tackle me to kiss me. And it was like, well, you had to walk through this lane and to get back home. And I learned how to run fast, I can tell you. But Joey had a twin brother, Albert, as well, and he was just as good a boxer as Joey was. And he had a hole in the heart though. So some people were a bit surprised when I went and opened the Mai Tai fights now. We've had them for a couple of years in Ballina. But it's what you grow up with, it's what you become used to. Being one of 7 children, Dad, the Aboriginals used to work for Dad on the farm. And he used to go and support the boxers around the boxing tents, around camps in Smithtown, Maxwell, where they all used to box. So his get away from home card was, I'll take Chun, they used to call me, Chun with me, Sharon, with me. And I said, I used to love going with Dad. And I really did, I became so absorbed in the boxing. So when the Mai Tai fights came here and they asked me to open it, I said, I'm there. Yeah, I can climb through the ropes. I can do that. And when I walked out at Lennox, not last year but the year before, I had a white top on, and I'm walking out and I looked down, what's all those red spots on this? In the front row, they were blood spots, all right. So, yes, it got me thinking about that. The Aboriginal community were just a big part of our life. They were like part of our family. Albert used to sing, Albert Donovan, he used to sing, and we teased my older sister about, he used to sing a little bit of Till You Let Me Down because he wanted her to be his girlfriend. And he'd sing playing his guitar and sing in our lounge room. Whenever there was a knock on the door at dinner time, it was always, yeah, come on in, there's plenty on the table, come in and join them, sharing a meal. And I think back in the day, it gave me a deep understanding of the Aboriginal community. They were different back then. And it's a shame that we see some sections of the Aboriginal community today spoiling it for others. It's a tragedy in epic proportions, and we see that playing out around Ballina. And it breaks my heart. We were behind that car that came out of the Metro service station. It was an Aboriginal person, 40-year-old Aboriginal person, and he was, he'd stole, the fellow had gone in to pay for his fuel, left the keys in the car, he jumped in, ran the red light in just near Brunswick Street, and swerved all over the road. And it was a real tragedy because it was triggering for us, having been in a car accident 12 months prior, hit by a 4 times over the limit driver head on just at the Fisher Creek Bridge. So it was a triggering experience for Bruce driving, and for me being the passenger, it was all playing out in front of us as if this was going to happen again. So we connect with all our stories, and we've all got a story. We've all got those things, and to be able to capture them, I think, as we, for authors that write these stories, it's hugely important. I've just started reading a book, Peter Carden, he was the federal member for Cadwallader back in, when was it, 1996. He won the seat and then went on to win and increase his vote. Just when the Tampa, John Howard was in government, and the Tampa was, he'd won the election, John Howard, and it was over the Tampa event. You'd all remember that. And it's just incredible, some of those things. So it's good to read, it's good to reflect, it's how we learn, how we remember, and heaven forbid if we ever get rid of our books. I know that we can definitely we've got Kinder, they're still books, aren't they, even online? I like my hard copies, I absolutely do. Difficult to get a chance to read anything apart from reports, but see, I have to make time. I have to make time and keep it up. So sorry I got on a bit of a tangent there. But today is a celebration, not just about books, but of the people behind them. Every author here has taken an idea, a memory, a question, or a spark of imagination and turned it into something that can travel far beyond this room. And that's no small thing. Writing asks for courage, persistence, and a willingness to share a piece of yourself with others. Sometimes that's difficult to do. Events like this remind us that writing may be done in quiet corners and early mornings, but being an author is never a solitary journey. Communities like this, where writers can meet, talk, laugh, swap stories about stories, and encourage one another, these are incredibly important. You inspire each other, and in turn you inspire all of us who get to read your work. Palm Lake is the perfect setting for a morning like this, warm, welcoming, and full of people with rich life experiences and stories of their own. I just think about it, look around this room and I see the wisdom contained in this room, the journeys that you've all been on. I've no doubt there'll be plenty of lively conversation over tea and coffee today, and know, even perhaps the beginning of some new book ideas. So thank you to all the organisers here for gathering, and thank you to each of you as authors for your creativity and heart you bring into our community. So enjoy the morning, enjoy the conversations, and most of all, just keep on writing. Your stories matter more than you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. It reminds me of a story. You talk about a young Aboriginal boxer. When I was 12, living in Gippsland, Warrigal, there was a young Aboriginal boxer there, and we used to fight and spar, and he beat me all the time. His name was Lionel Rose. True. So thank you, Sharon and Bruce, for joining us today. So we're going to hear from 5 authors, and they're all lined up here, ready to go. Then we're going to have a 45-minute break for coffee, and you can go and have a chat and discuss it with them. And then following that, we'll have another 5 authors. So please hang in there. But as Sharon said, today we are celebrating something truly special. The stories that live amongst us. In this village we share many things. Cups of tea, laughter, memories, and happy hour. And today we share imagination, experience, and the written word. Our 9 resident authors have done something remarkable. They have taken ideas, memories, family histories, mysteries, and inspiration and turned them into books. Some have written gripping crime fiction. Some have recorded lives while lived through autobiography and family history. And others have created inspirational gift books designed to uplift, encourage, and be shared with others. And of course, Cole's and Christine's book, Turning of the Tide, a story of resilience and recovery. Each book represents courage, creativity, and a willingness to say, I have something worth sharing. Writing can be a solitary pursuit. The stories are meant to be shared. And today is about sharing them with pride. And as we hear from each author, we won't be just talking about books, we'll be hearing about journeys, inspiration, challenges, and the joy of seeing words come to life. So please make our authors feel welcome, celebrate their achievements, and enjoy discovering the remarkable talent that sits here right amongst us. Prior to meeting that, I don't know if you know Julie, but I know her very well. We live together. Yeah, didn't start a rumour. We don't have rumours in Everett. So Julie's just going to take us, because part of today is about the writing, but also how to publish, which is probably sometimes the hardest part. So Julie's going to take us through a short summary of how to publish. Handing over.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay without the ticking sound? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what I thought I'd do before we actually hear from each of the authors, I'd just give you a bit of background about what they've had to go through to get published, because there may be a lot of authors amongst you, but for the ones we've got today, they've gone through that next big journey of getting published, and that's quite a mysterious sort of process. Well, I certainly found it so when I started. So I'm just going to give you a quick 5-minute run through. There may be some budding authors amongst us that might find this useful to think about how they could take that next step. Okay. So there's 3 types, you can see that through me. There's 3 ways that you can get published. Sorry. There's 3 ways you can get published. Probably the traditional way that we see in the bookshops is by getting a very big, scary publisher like HarperCollins or Ellen Unwin to actually take you on. Now, very, very few submissions to these publishers actually get accepted. You know, something like 0.01% of submissions actually get accepted. So that's a tough way to do it. And, you know, up until about 10 or 15 years ago, that was the only way that you could get published. You had to find an agent. The agent had to agree to sort of sell you off to the publishers. And maybe 2 or 3 years later, you might actually have a published book if you were lucky. And if you did that, you wouldn't necessarily have much say in the cover design, they have the right to rearrange your story, get rid of characters and so on. So the one that I'm going to focus on is self-publishing, because in the last 10, 15 years that's really grown. And self-publishing is a very effective way to get your book from those scribbles that you might have done on the kitchen table through to a published story that other people can read. The other way that you'll see some of our authors have gone is to actually work with a local publisher, a local printing company, to actually turn their book into a finished, published work. So that's another option as well that you can use. So let's have a quick look at some of those in more detail. So with the traditional publishers, there are advantages and there are disadvantages. And I think I'm the only one, no, there's two of us that have gone the traditional publishing way. So you'll get to talk to us during the break. So with the traditional publisher, you get a really professional job done because it's their job to make the book sellable. So they will help with the layout, the editing, the cover design, all of the things that are actually quite challenging when you're first starting to write a book. They're the ones that will distribute it to the bookstores, the libraries. So you get the biggest profile, if you like, when you're using a traditional publisher. But it does come with some disadvantages. You are handing over your copyright, meaning that book is then the publisher's. You can't then go and use that material in other publications. You have to get permission even to use parts of it. It's a long time frame, typically it can take 2 to 3 years, and you hand over the rights in terms of choosing your cover design and the final edit. So they do a lot of the work for you, but you have to surrender. For a lot of people, that's actually a good thing, because for a lot of people doing cover and layout is actually very hard. In terms of royalties, you don't get a lot, typically 5 to 10%, maybe a little bit higher if you're a more experienced author. So if the book sells for $25, you do the sums, you don't get a lot per book, okay? So self-publishing, just come to the next one. So with self-publishing, everyone familiar with Amazon? Has anyone bought any books from Amazon? Okay. Well, they allow you to publish your book to be listed on Amazon using a platform called KDP. And what that is you prepare your book, so you might write it in Word, you convert it to a PDF after you've laid it out, and then you upload it to a platform that KDP provides. And what they do is they then take that book, format it for you in the sense that it's print on demand. So if somebody, for instance in America, wants to buy your book, all they do is go to Amazon, they click buy, they pay Amazon, the book gets printed, and a couple of days later it gets sent to the person who ordered it. Seems pretty amazing, but it works. You get royalties, but you get to say what you want the book to sell for. So as long as it covers the printing cost and the KDP costs, you have control. And you have complete control over the cover, the content. With the control, it also comes responsibility. So you're responsible for making that cover, editing and so on. But it's a really powerful way for authors to actually get published. There's no gatekeepers, there's no publisher saying, no, I don't think that'd sell. In fact, you don't even have to publish with the idea of selling. You can just do it to make it available to your friends and family and to get your book printed. So quite a lot of people do it for that purpose. So if you just have a family memoir that you want to make available to people, perhaps you have rallies overseas, the book is printed in the country that it's ordered. So you don't have to send the book from here to England or Ireland or whatever. The publisher controls that. So I sold over Christmas quite a number of books into America and Canada. No cost to me, and the person it just gets delivered to their address by the local printer in that company. So print on demand is a pretty amazing idea. You don't have to order a lot of books, you only get printed when somebody orders it. So that's print on demand. And then finally, local printing. I've also gone this option for a children's book. There's a few printers in the area, particularly in Lismore, that you can take your book to and say, I would like to have this printed. And they can guide you and help you through that process. The disadvantage is you really do need to order bulk copies. For them to do a run, you probably need to be ordering 100, 200, 300 copies. So you have to have that outlay and pay for that there and then. And then of course you have them in your garage and you're trying to sell them on. Or everyone gets it for Christmas that year. So yes, so there's a few printing companies that do that for you. So that's just an overview of some of the different ways that people have gone through. As we hear from each of the authors, they'll be telling you how they went about getting published, just to give you a bit of context. So 3 ways: traditional, self-publishing and local printing. Very good. So I'll hand back to Roger.
Okay, now we're getting into the fun bit. Where did he go? Thought you'd left. Oh, you're getting mic'd up. You guys want to join me? Christine, you're on. I'll stand in the middle. You go one other side. Are you okay up there?
You can stand.
You can stand
I'll
if you want.
stand.
You can stand and lean against it. It's up to you. And
Who's going to do the mic? Do you
Well-
want to come over here?
yeah, okay. You go. Pretend you like each other.
They wrote a book together, so they still like each other. It's pretty amazing.
We really do.
I'd like to hear Julie's version of that later. So, all of us who are here remember the horrific floods of 2022, but few of us remember them like Cole and his fellow Rotarians, who I think there's a few of them here today who were at the front line experiencing that. Christian, I want to start with you. Let's use the microphone. I understand without your involvement, this book may not have been written. Can you tell us how it all came about?
Well, it all began with Bert, my Bert dog. So I used to walk my Bert dog very early, every morning, rain, hail or shine. And of course, it was raining a lot then. Nobody else was mad enough to be out in it except me. Except when I came to the home straight, there's this man with his yellow raincoat gear on. And so I stopped and said, what the heck are you doing? He's with his truck there, as far as I knew. We were flooded in and we couldn't get out. So he started talking about wading through waist-deep water and going to a mate with a boat and then going down to the creek, down the creek and then turning right into the raging river, as you do, to go and rescue a mate. So I thought, oh my goodness me. So every day after that, I kept seeing Cole. He was loading up the truck. So it was quite interesting finding out what the heck this man was doing every day. And then one day I said to him, well, are you taking any notes about this? Because this is a good story. I've had quite a few jobs in my life, and one of them was writing for a local paper, and here was a cracker of a story unfolding in front of me. So I said, anytime you want to write it, I'm here to help you.
Excellent. And Cole, you're going to continue this story because you were like this.
Well, when Christine said to me, I hope you're diarising all this and taking a lot of photos and stuff, the whole thing was so dramatic that we probably didn't take enough photos, but anyhow. But when Christine said to me, you should write a book on this, and I said, Christine, I don't have time to even read a book, let alone write one, but it's a good story. And Christine said, well, I'm going to come back the next day. This is 6:30 in the morning, raining, and every day I'd start about 5:30 in the morning to pack my ute up, ready for the day. We were feeding up to 3,000 meals a day and cleaning houses and doing some remarkable work, and of course listening to stories that I'll never forget, through with people just in such terrible circumstances at the time. And Christine said to me, I'll come back tomorrow morning if you think about what do you think about writing a book? And next morning Christine comes back and she said, did you think about it? And I said, look, I did. I said, I've read a number of history books on Ballina. This event is the greatest disaster I know in everybody in this room's lifetime in Ballina. I've lived here all my life. We've never seen floods like it. We've never seen water like it. So I said to Christine, look, it's a good story, but I wouldn't know where to start. And Christine said to me, well, I was a school teacher, teaching English, and then I was a journo, and I'd love to help you. And from that, it wasn't just the writing of the book. Most Sundays we got together Sunday afternoon, only for about an hour and a half. I met the most remarkable lady I've ever met in my life. It was, we had such a journey writing this, didn't we? We laughed, we cried. Julie used to listen to her, she was in the office and we'd be laughing away about certain things. What a journey, and it's such a great thing to do, but it's such an important part of Ballina's history, and I'm delighted that we've been able to put together a book that is really so factual, and somebody that was on the ground working every day for 2.5 years, and that's what that book's about. It's a real story, it's a real history of an event that we hope we never see again, but it's a factual event which I was able to write because of this remarkable lady who was so talented in putting all this together.
Well done. And I imagine, Sharon, your team was heavily involved in all that sort of stuff as well. So, Christina, a question for you. You wrote in the foreword that Cole said, I've lost count of the number of grown men who have collapsed sobbing in my arms. How did that affect you?
Well, that had an enormous effect on me. In fact, I put that in introduction because I felt as if that was the crux of the matter, that as we know, men never cry. And yet here, all these men were collapsing, sobbing into Cole's arms. So not only was this an illustration of how powerful this disaster was, it showed what Cole was, how he was supporting all the people who'd lost everything in this terrible disaster.
Wow. So, Cole, what was the most challenging part of writing this book for you?
Reliving stories. I'll be honest with you. I read the draft, we read the draft all the time, of course, read the draft. I cannot read the book. I have been probably up to about page 12. Just in preparation for today, like I've done a lot of talks to Rotary clubs, to Progress clubs, to all sorts of organisations. We've been to Brisbane, Newcastle, all over the place talking. And I haven't done this for about 12 months, so I thought I'm going to get the book out and have a bit of a look, same story. I think the challenges were the fact that I'm a local. The people that were coming up to me in Wardell, well, Ballina, of course, because that's where we kicked off. Ballina, Wardell and Broadwater. Some of these guys were mates of mine. I lived at East Wardell. That's where I grew up on a cane farm. And a lot of these people were farmers that lost everything. The home I grew up in at East Wardell in the 54 flood, which was supposed to be the biggest flood, didn't get one drop of water in it. Didn't get too far off, but in the last flood it had 1.5 meters of water in it. And I spoke to the people that owned that, and that was very upsetting because I loved that where I grew up. It was on the beach, East Wardell, fantastic place. But it was the people that I met that I knew that were just so devastated, and we were able to, the good thing was, we were able to do so much. And I think, if I reflect back, the building of the homes, putting people in homes, when we went around and we were handing out $500 vouchers to people throughout Ballina, Wardell, Corrie, Woodburn. In all, we handed out $890,000 worth in vouchers, which was a lot of money. overall the whole project was we were able to work hard, and thanks to just the connections we have, we raised 2.2 million for this region. Our temporary home project got people from living in squalor, only way to put it, and unfortunately a number of people took their lives because of the conditions they were living in before we got there to help them. But to build those little houses and just see how the gratitude was a life-changing experience for me. And thinking back, here's 40 houses, probably 120 people, not a house we'd like to live in, but it just was like them going into a new home after they've been living in an old shed. Caravans that were just had it because of the water that had gone through them, and then they had to go back to live in them. Farmers who slept on the roofs of their homes with their wives for 4 or 5 days with bull sharks just circling all around. The stories just go on forever. This book tells a lot of that, but it's a real history. It's something that we can, Christina and I, we wrote that with the idea that it was going to be a historical book for generations to come to see what could be done, and hopefully it's been what we did through our wonderful Rotary Club and the Satellite Club from here, who did so much. They built all the for the houses, they built all the and assembled all the kitchens for us here in our shed, work shed. Lots of great stories in this book. I know there's a number of people in this room that have got the book, and the feedback has just been phenomenal. But overall, the whole 2.5 years we worked was very trying on physically, mentally, and I guess it'll remain with us forever. But we're very proud of what we've done with the book and the reviews we've had.
Should be.
Yeah. It is truly amazing what you two have done, and you've left a legacy for all of us and for people to come. How did you go about publishing the book?
I published the book through, actually initially, Barlow Printers. Dave Kavanagh was a mate of mine and a good client, and I used Barlow Printers in my business here. And Dave was wonderful to work with, wasn't he, Christine? And whilst all this was happening, they sold the business to Lismore Printers, and that wasn't a problem. They were wonderful to deal with. They were very efficient. Lismore Printery went underwater, so what they do now, they outsource all their printing. It goes to Brisbane, but we were fortunate how we put it together when the process for us. Tell me if I'm wrong, Christine, but which you've done before. So what we did, Christine, right from the outset, Christine said, if we're going to write a book, we're not going to make it too big because it'll be too repetitious, which that's really worked out very well for us. Number 2 was the fact we're going to get it professionally edited, and that was the key.
Yes.
And we had a wonderful lady in Newcastle that had a big business, and so once we got the draft, we were happy with that. We sent that to her, and she then got back to me in 3 days. Normally she said, we look at 300 books a week, and I chucked 75% out. She said, I'll get back to you within 3 weeks, and I'll let you know if it's worthy of going ahead with it. She got back to me in 3 days, and she said this book should go to every community service club in Australia because it's an inspiration what community can do, community service clubs can do. From there, she gave it to a co-editor who lives at New Brighton and Bronwyn, and she just set it out for us so well. And then we spoke to printers again, and they said we've got to format this. And just by chance, I was here at Happy Hour, and wonderful Henry Rennie down the back, who we'll listen to in a moment, said to me, if you want me to help you in any way, I can do it. I said, can you format a book? He said, yeah, that saved me $10,000 on this book. Because all the money from this book that we make goes to the Ballina Hot Meal Centre and the Rotary Foundation. So just the $10,000 save is a lot of books when you don't make a heck of a lot out of each one. So, so we did that. Lismore Printers then put it all together. Jodie Shelley, who's here, one of my wonderful Rotary colleagues, she designed the cover, and the cover's a really important part of the book and tells the story. So it's and that's Ballina there. So that's how we did it. But once Lismore Printers got it, it took 2 months to get the books printed. We started off, we thought I might do it, because if we sold 300 we'd be pretty happy. And the bloke said, you're crazy, so we ended up getting 500, and from there we've got about 2,000 books, and we've sold close to 2,000 books, so it's been really successful.
You guys are truly amazing, and you live in our village. How good is that? The book is up there for sale. If you haven't got it, you need to get it, and the proceeds go to charity.
$15 a book. Normally we have been
$15.
selling for $20, but today, because it's special, we're 15.
So a big hand for these two guys, please. A big hand. Right, I'm going to call up a gentleman who needs no introduction. It's not you, Ian.
I know who it is.
Doug Stinson, if you want to make your way up here. But while he's making your way up here, I just need to tell the visitors, because all the locals know this, he's a member of a very exclusive club here. It's called the Table of Knowledge. And this is made up of mainly men who meet on a Friday night at Happy Hour over there near the bar because they're too lazy to walk to get a drink. And these are very intelligent gentlemen. I'm talking about you, Doug. Who can solve all the problems of the world. And it's a very exclusive club. And I was talking to Doug the other day, and I said, why are you a member? He says, I don't call it the Table of Knowledge, I call it the Comedy Club. So, and that's his theme. You going to join me?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's good.
It's not
to
your
see
turn.
you. I'm just going to change the tone a little.
No, you're not. I'm finished. That's fine. So
Okay,
I'm going to lead in because in your book, and this is great reading, you say your measurement of success simply relates to laughter. How successful are you?
Well, we'll find out after this little talk. Let's see how we go.
What tell us about your book and what?
All right, well, I guess the best way to describe the book is on the back cover. I've got a pretty good summary of what it's about. I said you should never fail to see the funny side of life. I firmly believe that being able to laugh is the true meaning of happiness, and the world will always seem a better place if you can laugh. Some people measure success in terms of wealth, others through academic or sporting achievements, and some through health and fitness. My measurement of success simply relates to laughter, and if you can laugh at yourself, that's an even better indication of being truly happy and successful. So that's basically what the book's about in that sense. I came across, I was thinking hard about what sort of person really am I before I had to do this. And I came across this book and I thought, you know, I read the first few long ones and I thought, the boys at the round table would really agree with this, I'm sure. And so I thought, I'd just read it out to you. says that I have a talent for being stupid at an early age. Since then, he has amazed the world with a truly stunning array of minor mistakes, major miscalculations, idiotic acts, inane remarks, incomprehensible behaviour, and extremely stupid stories. I think that probably sums up what the boys around the round table would think about it.
Right.
So anyway, the book itself was planned to be a comical look at the sort of the things I've been through in my life. I had a very interesting life, as has everybody, I think. And I think, you know, when I think back on all of the places I've been and the things I've done, I've really had a wonderful life, and I could not possibly hope for anything more. I've been an unsuccessful farmer. I've been a questionable hospital administrator. I've been a fisherman, questionable, and I've been a world traveller. My most success has been basically in writing when I think about it, in that I'm really no good at anything mechanical or technical or anything like that. That always beats me. What I've done all my life is to write. Writing reports for boards, writing reports for councils, writing reports, you know, for all sorts of things.
Sorry, Doug, you're just not showing up on the screen. We want to
That's
see
not
your
good.
face.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, so most of my life I've been writing. I haven't been, you know, doing mechanical, apart from the farming, which was a total failure anyway. Wasn't any good at any of that. And that'd be a long story. Really, it's writing that is me, basically. And as Sharon said, everyone has a story to tell, you know. And there's no doubt if everybody was to tell their story, you'd get so much enjoyment out of them. But you know, it's getting people to do it. The decision to write the book was made many years ago, really. My mother-in-law in particular always encouraged me to write a story for the family. And, you know, something for the kids that they could keep forever. And she said, you've got so many stories, you should write them down and make a story of it. So unfortunately she passed on, but since then I've thought more about that. And I thought, yeah, well, maybe I should write a story about the funny things and the things that have happened to me. I didn't want it to be a serious story. I wanted it to be the funny things that have happened to me. And at times they weren't so funny. But when I look back on them, they are quite funny. When you've got a helicopter coming into Prince of Wales Hospital, you've got the police on the phone saying, you know, where's the helicopter going to land? And you say, we haven't got anywhere to land. They don't land here, they land in Prince Henry. And they said, don't get off the phone, we've lost contact with the helicopter. So I was stamping up and down the office with this phone here, and I got my assistant to get in touch with the staff supervisor and said, get a spot somewhere for the helicopters to land. Do something. He said, what about all the cars? I said, just lift them up if you have to. Get them out of the way and put a circle down. Off he went. She literally off. In the meantime, I'm still walking up and down with the phone in my ear. Someone come in and said, can I where we did it? I said, no words now. I'm flat out. I've got this big problem. I've got this helicopter coming in. We don't know where it's going to land. We don't know when it's going to get here. He said, the helicopter? He said, it came in half an hour ago. The patient's already in intensive care. So I had a lot of stories like that it encouraged me to write. I remember Professor Hollows, he was what you'd call a legend in some ways. But he used to do all sorts of silly things to me. And I used to get these requisitions when I was executive officer of Prince of Wales, and I had to sign them and approve them and send them out to Prince Henry, where the purchasing officer was. And one day the purchasing officer rang me, he said, "You fair think about this requisition you've approved for Fred?" I said, "Why? What is it?" He said, 12-month subscription to Playboy magazine. I said, "Fred, what did you do that to me for?" He said, "I knew you'd sign them. I see the way you sign those things." Anyway, with the encouragement of a family, I just tell a little bit about how it came about. It wasn't a single effort. I've been, as I say, I've been writing reports and stories pretty well all my life. So I just got a whole lot together. I remember when we went on a trip overseas, I'd written a story about that, just for ourselves, you know, a resume of the things we've done. And various things we've done during my life, I've written a story about. So I thought I'll get them all together and put them all in together. I used to write a report for the fishing club most months about the crazy antics we got up to and the lack of fish we ever caught. So I thought I'll throw all that in too. So most of it was just things that I had written before, and I decided to try and put them together in the shape of a book. I had an awful lot of help from others, I've got to say that. Vicky's here, Vicky Knudsen, who was my assistant at the time, she did a wonderful job for me, helping me out. I had Bam helped me a lot. Ginger Bob was, I don't think Ginger Bob's here, but he was very helpful. So all in all, I had so much help from people that made it easier. I did get it published through Amazon, and it seemed to be a pretty good deal at the time. So I got about 30 copies, and I never charged anything for them. I didn't want anything for them. I don't think it's worth money. So I never charged anything. So I handed them around to people to just read and pass on. I gave quite a number to the family, of course, people that had been something about them in the book. But then I lost them all. I couldn't get them back again. They just went drifted around Palm Lake and here, there and everywhere. I had a couple in the library, and so they all disappeared. And one of the things that was very dear to me, and I just want to make this comment today, was I had a copy of the book that I showed to my staff from the hospital. This was after I'd been there years later, and they all wrote really nice comments in it about been working with me at the hospital, and I've lost it. I can't find it anywhere. So if anybody knows the book that's floating around, it's got a whole lot of comments in it. I'd really love to get it back again. Anyway, thank you all. The last thing I want to say was never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, moving along, I'm going to invite our singer-songwriter, guitar playing, Christina Hart. So I'm just going to say, hi Christina.
Hello Roger.
And I'm just going to let you go for it. Is that a good idea?
That is, thanks very much. Roger's agreed that I just read out. Oh yes.
Put that on so that
Yep.
we can hear what's going on.
Change the slide as well.
Thank you.
Thank
You could be my slide. Do you want to do this? It's changed. What are you talking about?
This is different from yesterday's. How'd you put it on? It's different from
Julie,
it's different from the one you had yesterday.
These we're putting little microphones on so people can hear in the audience. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Roger's agreed that I read out a prepared presentation because it'll make things a lot clearer for a subject that's very, very different from all the others here, and isn't such variety wonderful. My mother, Olive Shapley, was a very well-known broadcaster and producer in the BBC. She joined in 1934, just 12 years after the BBC was founded, the first public broadcasting organisation in the world. Olive's career spanned 40 years. She worked in many radio roles, broadcaster, scriptwriter and producer. She also worked in the early days of television during the 1950s, in front of and behind the camera. She produced the first television programme on books, its popularity defying the BBC hierarchy who said it could never work. By the early 1990s, Olive had already drafted the first few chapters of her autobiography. My family, that's Tony and me and our son Adam, were living in the UK for a few years, and Olive and I reviewed the book situation. We decided to complete it in collaboration. I built on her work and used many resources to complete her story and bring it to publication. This was a totally new experience for me, but I loved it. The research, the book proposal, dealing with publishers, choosing photographs, compiling the index, copyright, a complicated area, not for the faint-hearted, working with the editor, 5 hours at our kitchen table, and pre- and post-publication publicity. Broadcasting a Life was published in 1996 by Scarlet Press, a traditional publisher. Publication was timed to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the iconic daily radio programme Woman's Hour, with which Olive had been associated for many years. I wrote the scripts for the programme's daily serial, which was read by the actress Stephanie Cole. Olive died in 1999. The book deliberately covered equally both Olive's professional and personal lives. Her personal life was also very interesting and had many ups and downs, but I'll leave that aside here. Her professional life was very varied over the years, but I've chosen in this limited time to highlight the source of her early fame and place in the history of broadcasting, the creation of radio documentaries. From the publisher's blurb on the book cover, Olive Shapley was one of the most imaginative and creative documentary radio producers in British broadcasting. And two of the shout lines on the cover, these are the critics and things that also get lines on the cover. A distinguished media historian, Paddy Scannell, wrote that Olive was a pioneer of radio broadcasting. Her story is an inspiring example of the difficulties and triumphs of a professional working woman's life this century. That, of course, was last century. And a radio critic described her as a heroine to everyone who heard her broadcast and to all those millions of people her programmes reached. In the mid-1930s, radio broadcasting was all scripted and studio-based, and the voices heard were mostly Southern English, educated, often academic, and solemn. Olive was in the north of England, based in Manchester, and she became determined to bring the spontaneous stories and voices of, quote, ordinary people to radio, which she found much more interesting and funny. But for this, she had to get out of the studio, and she was one of the first producers to use the original mobile recording unit. From the book. The recording van was 27 feet long and weighed, when fully loaded, more than 7 tons. Its maximum speed was 20 miles an hour. Inside were 2 turntables, each operated by a technician. The recording time of each disc was a maximum of 4 minutes. These days, all that and a lot more would fit into a mobile phone. Olive's first documentary was called LSD, A Study in Shopping. This, of course, was pounds, shillings and pence at that time. And the BBC rather reluctantly agreed that she could make some more. From the book. And so for a year or so, I lived a strange life in the cabs of long-distance lorries, down coal mines, in doss houses, on longboats on the canals. Every so often, someone said wistfully, You know we gave you this job so you could produce a women's magazine programme, but nothing could stop me. The media historian, Paddy Scannell, wrote in one of his books that Olive brought to maturity the use of recorded actuality as the basis of a radio feature, and that her programmes broke new grounds for radio, both in technique and in their subject matter. Further, that such reportage, combined with her sympathetic skill as an interviewer, a quite new technique which she had to discover for herself, led one contemporary critic to describe Shapley's programmes as little masterpieces of understanding and authenticity. Finally, the book sold well in the UK, it was stocked in many libraries, and we got lots of lovely readers' letters. I answered everyone personally, as Olive had had a stroke a few months before publication, but she was still able to enjoy our achievement. Thanks.
Wow. That's amazing, Christina. And Christina's got a stall up here somewhere where if you want to get further information from her, please do. Thank you very much. That was amazing.
There aren't any books left for sale. I'm keeping the last few we have, but I have lending copies. And the lending copies have a sheaf of documents inside, including the publisher's blurb, the quotes from readers' letters, and two wonderful obituaries in national broadsheets when she died.
Thank you. And the words of Doug Stinson, lending means you give it back. Thank you. Right, whilst Robert Barlow is heading this way, because he should have been sitting here, I'll just tell you a story. Bruce.
Oh, yeah, right. Thanks, Hart.
Thanks, Bruce. Robert's a teacher, if you didn't know. He's really pedantic about sort of things, and he comes to my trivia nights, and I was in Woolies by the frozen chickens, and this gentleman would come up and he says, Roger, that answer you gave last time was wrong.
It was too.
No, it wasn't. We'll have an argument. But it's, and I think you're going to find, as we're talking about his book, he's done that same sort of forensic study in this book as he does what he's watching. Are you coming on Monday night, the trivia night?
Of course.
Oh. We're having a trivia night tomorrow night. I better get ready.
It's on, just
Well,
put it on.
Just try it.
Okay. Well, the question was, what was the city in the USSR that had a nuclear meltdown in 1986? No. The question, what was the city in Russia that had a nuclear meltdown in 1986? And the answer is none. But the answer to the question was Chernobyl. Now, anyone who knows the European geography will know that Chernobyl is not in Russia, it's in the Ukraine.
And I offered to give him the website where I got that information from to contact them. So it's not like...
I'd also offered not to be a contestant in a trivia night and to do due diligence on...
No, I need you there. We've got to move along because I'm getting wound up. Tell us about this book that you've written.
All right, I've written a family history of my maternal grandparents, and there is the family on the front cover of the book, with my grandfather, Thomas Henry Ison, also known as Harry, and my grandmother, Emily Rose Josephine Nee Wheeler, but Ison, and their 7 children, one of whom was my mother. Why did I write the book? Well, I have a number of cousins that were born either during World War II or just after World War II. My cousin Jill is about a year younger than me, and Roger will tell you that devotees of AFL will have a room in their house in Melbourne devoted to their club. You would have had a Collingwood room, is that correct?
I still do.
You still do. With memorabilia right through it. Well, Jill has an Ison room. She's a real tiger for family history. And she collects it and digs it out. Anyway, I reconnected with Jill. I hadn't seen her or heard from her for about 30 years, and then a mutual friend in Lismore said, "Oh, you're Jill Parker's cousin." I said, "Yes." So we started talking about this, and Jill had done all these historical quests all over central western New South Wales, and she was telling me about all this stuff, and I said, "Jill, someone needs to write a book about this." And she said, "Yeah, but who?" And I said, "Well, look, I've written high school textbooks, I could write a family history." And she was overjoyed at this. And anyway, the easy part was going back a generation before my grandparents, because that generation was two 2-year-old children on the wharf at Plymouth in England in 1848. One was a boy called James Thomas Isons, whose parents had left their market garden in Hackney in London to move to Australia, hopefully for a better life. And the other one was a little girl, Rosina Northey, and her parents had left Cornwall, again hoping to find a better life in Australia. They met each other in October 1848, and they parted from each other in 1918 when James Thomas passed away. One of the stories I'd tell him, that it was easy to get the stuff because I have cousins who have also written books about the family. That's one written by Ray Ison, who's a professor at the Open University at Milton Keynes in London, or north of London. Very academic, researched, and wouldn't accept relationships unless he had documentary evidence. And the documentary evidence in the 19th and the 18th century is pretty sketchy. And it's an academic book, and it's like watching paint dry if you try to read it. I didn't want to write a book like that. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to tell stories of my great-grandparents, my grandparents, and each of their children, and then my generation as well. While I was writing about the 19th century and Rosina and James Thomas, I started to make up conversations. They got married and they had 10 children, so something went right for them. But I got to the stage where James Thomas and Rosina are still under the age of 21, which is adult age then. And I have James coming to Rosina's father, Bill Northey, and they've been getting ready for harvest and that sort of thing. And James Thomas says, "Mr. Northey, I'd like to ask you for Rosina's hand in marriage." And Bill Northey gets really angry and his face turns red with rage, and he says, "Rosina is not with child, is she?" And he said, "No, sir, she's as pure and as chaste as the day she was born. But it's just that we're both under 21, and I wanted to do this the right way. I haven't even asked her yet, but I'm asking you." And the whole thing changes it. So that was a conflicted conversation. It was really hard in the 20th century, particularly after I was born, to find a lot of documentary evidence. Fortunately, I have a reasonably good memory, although living here in Palm Lake, I tend to forget a lot of things. but I remembered a lot, and I had to write it down from memory. When my father passed away in July 1968, I was at a union dinner at Sydney University a couple of months later on, and I read it, we all had name tags on, and ran across this bloke. He said, "You any relation of Barlow?" I said, "Oh, he was my father." He said, why? I said, he passed away a couple of months ago. He said, well, I served with your father in France during World War I. And I'd like to tell you a story about how he got promoted by King George V. Anyway, King George had asked Monash, General Monash, he'd like to review Australian troops. So they come to this barracks, and it's a quadrangle. And my father was putting the troops through close order drill. And he couldn't see King and Monash approaching. And he had them standing at ease, waiting for the king to arrive. And someone who will remain nameless, Clive didn't know his name, broke wind rather noisily and it reverberated. And my father, in his best, he just turned 21, his best parade ground voice, he said, I didn't order that, put it back. and the king says to Monash, that WO2 Monash, what's his name now? Monash knew his men. And he said, that's WO2 Barlow, Your Majesty. He said, promote him, we need officers like that. And the final story I'll tell you is the lady that I love second best to my wife, Bev, my mother. She typed all my essays while I was at university, and one Saturday afternoon, we're talking away. Degrees and diplomas were very important to me then as a 20-year-old. I said, Mum, have you got any degrees or diplomas? And didn't bat an eyelid. She said, PBOST. I said, PBOST, what's that? She said, poor bloody old school teacher. Well, I got one of those when I retired in 2006. Anyway, that's a bit like what the book's about.
Oh, well done. Thank you very much. We've done pretty well. We're only 7 minutes behind where we wanted to be. So that means instead of 45 minutes for morning tea, you'll get 38. So you need to be back here at 11:15, otherwise Bruce will get you. Right? Yeah. So we're going to start morning tea there, coffee's there, help yourself. We're going to have orange juice, we've got apple juice, we've got biscuits. It'll be there in about 3 1/4 seconds, yeah?